back, got back, did a little bit. Now we hardy, buffy, tough, do-rag and Tim's. Kinda hard to get a job back out on the block. Charge that to the game.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Expose Under the Sun, brought to you by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I am your guest host, Darwin Griffin, and I welcome you to get an opportunity to have the next 30 minutes to be enlightened by my special guest today. I am substitute guest hosting for Sharon Dumas, but she will be back in the upcoming weeks. But I ask you also to call in because the show is live. Our call-in numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, and 313-868-4336. The website is www.tv33 or WHPR.com. Again, you're watching TV 33, WHPR in Detroit and Highland Park. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to have my special guest on the show today, and her name is Patrice Lee. Patrice, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Darwin.
Now, we go back because I know the last time that I had guest hosted the show, I think that you were my guest on the show before.
That's correct.
And it's just bringing back a lot of memories as to, so what has been going on, Patrice, since the last time that we had an opportunity to have this kind of a conversation?
Well, as you know, I do bullying and suicide prevention through Leap for Joy Books, and our nonprofit is It's Never Too Early, Only Too Late. And we are still working with schools, with children, with parents, through workshops to help prevent bullying, and most of all, to prevent bully-related suicides.
So is that something that in the last couple of years, has that gone on an upswing in terms of, say, were there a whole lot more suicides from bullying since the last time we talked?
Well, I've been working with this particular project now for about 8 or 9 years, and the problem has continued to intensify. You may not hear about it as much every day on the news as it once was, but we're still losing as many as 4,500 children and youth per year to bully-related suicide deaths.
Well, for our audience, can you define what is bullying?
Bullying it occurs when you have an individual, it can be a man, woman, boy, or girl, child, adult, who intimidates another individual, particularly making them feel small or inferior or just not good about themselves in any particular way. It can be verbal or physical. It can be with or without an audience, and that person in turn begins to feel the effects of those person's comments or their gestures.
Can you tell me what ages does it occur in?
Bullying affects all ages, from childhood through adolescence, even into adulthood. It also occurs in the workplace as well.
Okay. Now, what are some of the effects of bullying?
What a parent might want to look out for if you have a child that's in school or just a school-aged child or even a child that plays in the neighborhood, in the community. You want to begin to notice what your child is doing. If they're beginning to do something differently, for example, a change in eating habits, a change in sleeping habits. Maybe your child is a good-natured child, but suddenly that child is irritable all the time. Or maybe that child can't make up their mind what they want to do, or they become withdrawn. These are some of the signs that a parent can look for in their child, and these are the effects of bullying. They can even have a slouched posture or just look as though they're slumped over all the time. It does affect you in many ways.
So parents should really keep a close eye on their child when they come home from school, just to look to see if they see these effects.
Yes, not only should they keep a close eye on their child, but they should also talk to their child on a daily basis, even to their teens, because the more open conversation you have, the more communication that you have with your child, and good verbal, communication back and forth, the more that child will feel as though they can talk to you and tell you anything. And that's what we want our children to do today, is to be able to converse with us about anything, on a daily basis.
So are those some of the steps then that a parent can take to kind of support their child who's being bullied? Or what are some of the steps besides what you just mentioned?
Well, if you perhaps notice a change in your child's behavior, or if you're already communicating with your child on a daily basis, you're going to notice some of those symptoms of the effects of bullying that I mentioned. But it's very important that once they begin to talk with you about it, something has happened in that day, the course of the day in school or on the playground, you want to take action immediately. You want to, first of all, not panic. Don't panic because your child is communicating with you. But you immediately want to address those concerns that your child brings up. So if something happens at school, you want to find out when, what happened, how it happened, who was present, and then you want to address it with the school right away. You don't want to linger.
So do they ever have situations where brothers may be bullying brothers or sisters may be bullying sisters, or does that occur as well?
Absolutely. We have bullying that occurs within families. I know of families that were bullies within themselves and in the community. So it can happen with siblings, it can happen with cousins. There are even sometimes aunts or uncles who might bully a child or even a parent, depending on what that child is accustomed to or not accustomed to.
Do you find sometimes where it's kind of difficult for a parent to believe their child when their child comes to them and tell them that, let's say, big sister or big brother has been teasing or bullying them?
You know, that's really an awesome question that you just asked, because sometimes parents actually are nurturing bullies at home, and we talk about that in our Tips and Tools book. We have a book called Tips and Tools for a Safe and Healthy School Year, and that one is written for parents and children. And in that book, I share the symptoms of bullying. I share some things that you can do, 10 steps that you can do, and one of the chapters covers parents who are nurturing a bully at home. For example, a parent can just ignore bad behavior just because they're used to that child being a bad child and say, oh, that's just what he does. He always does those things. But if you allow that child to get away with certain behaviors and conversation or whatever they're doing at home, that child is going to go outside of the home and there'll be a bully at school. So yes, that bully needs to be addressed at home, and sometimes parents do ignore it. Maybe they're too tired, maybe they're not paying attention, or they're just not there.
So can you go into a little bit more detail? I know you said that for our viewing audience about a nurturer that bullies.
Nurturing a bully, for example, if a parent continues to ignore consistent bad behavior, if I can say bad behavior, or behavior that is not conducive to good ethics or good morals or just good conduct. If that child continues to get away with that at home, that's a bad symptom and that is a symptom of nurturing a bully. If you're constantly giving your child everything that he or she wants, that child will grow up thinking they're supposed to have everything they want, and they'll act out because they don't get it, and they may impose their wants or desires on someone else who has what they want. That could even begin to nurture a bully. And just those are two things, yes.
So now, what are some of the steps that adults can take to avoid like childhood or adolescent bullying?
To avoid childhood or adolescent bullying, if you can, you always want to be aware of what your child is doing, where they are, and who they're interacting with. You always want to make sure that there's someone that's responsible around, or if the children are in the classroom, if you know that there's a particular child who tends to pick at other children, you want to make sure that you set rules. Well, you always set rules in a classroom. You always have guidelines for behavior, and the schools always have a student code of conduct. But you want to make sure that you put that child in a place where you can visualize, you can see him or her, and that they're visual at all times.
So what do you do about the adult in terms of if an adult is being bullied?
For adults, well, that's a little different, because if a child is allowed to get away with bullying as a child, that child, adolescent, grows up to become a bully, usually in the workplace. And those are a little more difficult because now you're dealing with adults who are trying to work and they're in the workplace where they're being bullied. And bullying can come from all kinds of directions. It can be through your work, it could be through your coworkers, it could be sabotage of your work. So you have to use a lot of caution there. Documentation is good if you need to go to that level. But mostly just being aware of your surroundings and always being your best at what you're doing. And sometimes if you report it, it helps, and sometimes it doesn't.
So what would be the difference between somebody that was harassed at work, or is there any difference, or being bullied at work?
It depends on the circumstance. Some of them go hand in hand. It could be if it's a man and a lady, that could be considered harassment, or if it's coworker, it could be harassment. It just depends on the level of bullying, and to what degree. But I will say that industry is losing billions of dollars a year because of work-related bullying. There is some of the symptoms of in the workplace. It causes a reduction in productivity, and even it causes absenteeism among the employee who's being bullied. So it's never a good thing, whether it's at school, the child level, or if it's the adult level. Bullying still has the same effect on the mind, on the emotions, and on your feelings.
So could that be one of the symptoms where you have a person that's working that, let's say, for example, takes a lot of time off from work? Could that be one of the symptoms of bullying?
Definitely, that could be one of the symptoms of bullying, yes.
Because I know that probably could be something where they're always sick or they're always calling in to take time off because they don't want to go through some of the repercussions of some of the persons that may be bullying them,
Yes.
in the workplace.
Yes, and we do address that matter in our Tips and Tools book, as well as in Bully Me No More, which is written for parents and children. So we cover some of the work-related bullying incidents as well as what children go through in school as well.
Okay.
And that is the purpose of Leap for Joy books. We really, really want children to understand that they are loved. We want them to have not just self-love, but be able to love others. As our book says here, let's love one another. We want them to be happy. That's one of the themes that comes through our books is live life happy. We do believe that children today can be happy and live life happy and bully free. Thus we have Happy to Be Me, which is written for grades pre-K through third grade. And all of our books have a lot of love in them so that children can feel the love through the books. And they all have wonderful endings as well.
Now, does it probably would give a good impact to the parent or to the person that's reading the book, to the person that may be being bullied as well, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes. It's impactful. It actually impacts both sides. If you are reading to a classroom, for example, I've gone into classrooms, first grade, kindergarten, and done classroom reads. And once I'm finished reading the book, there's discussion. And we have had little first graders. I remember in particular a classroom last year, there were two little boys. One was seated way on one end of the classroom and the other, it was a large classroom, on the other end. And we talked about their situation and what was going on between them. And I said, boys, would you like to forgive each other and let this go? Let this be the last day that you'd have this problem. And they said yes. And the little boy that was being bullied actually walked all the way across the classroom and hugged the other little boy. And so when you have discussion and when you do readings from books that are really positive, children's minds begin to change, and they're so versatile, and they're so they are like sponges. They take in good information, and so that's why we want to reach the children while they're young, so that bullying for them won't be a problem when they get older, because it's been addressed at an early age.
That's great. Mm-hmm. That's great. If you have any questions that you'd like to go and ask Ms. Lee, you can call in again. The show is live. You can call in. The calling numbers are 313 area code 868-0342, 868-0351, and 868-4336. Now, do you think that the problem with bullying in adults has reached an epidemic level?
Surprisingly, there's not a lot of conversation about adults unless you happen to reach an adult that's in a workplace setting that's being bullied at the time. Adults don't usually give reports, or it's not really publicized as well as our youth, because our youth are actually taking their lives at very young ages, between 9 and 24. They're leaving here to suicide-related bully-related suicide deaths. So as a result, the focus is on the youth and the children right now.
Okay.
There are many programs in place in some of the jobs and in some of the places of employment where they have EAP programs and programs to help employees overcome some of their obstacles or their concerns in their personal lives as well as in the workplace.
Okay. Now, I guess the one thing that I want to ask you too is that, thank you,
Thank you.
is that when you go into the schools and speak about bullying, what is your contact information if a person, let's say at one of the principals or one of the administrators in the schools, wanted to go and talk to you about having you come and address, the children at the school? How would they get in contact with you to
They
do
can
that?
reach me at my email address, which is Patrice A. Lee at Gmail, which is PATRICE, capital A, capital L, EE at gmail.com.
Okay, great. Let me see. I think we may have a caller.
Okay.
Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is the first time I saw your program. I just happened to put my TV on since I was home. But anyway, your topic, I hear you talking about bullying with the young children.
Yes.
Can you speak up a little bit because we can't really hear you on the air?
Speaking about your discussion is on bullying children.
Correct. Did you have a question for her?
Right. I can remember now. I'm up in age. I'm 68. But,
Okay,
I
make
can
sure,
remember when I
caller,
was in
can you
school,
make sure that your TV is down?
elementary school, the children used to.
Okay, can you turn your TV down a little bit because we can barely hear you. We can't really hear you if your TV is up. But if you can turn your volume down, that would be appreciated.
All right. I'm going to turn it down.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, I was saying, way back in the day, like I was in school, elementary school, we had bullying also. That's nothing really new. It got worse now because, you always had some children that was maybe bullying you and you was afraid of them. You was taught to don't be afraid of nobody. No, but it's just gotten worse now. Bullying with guns and threats and all this kind of stuff. So I know, so I think that's the topic you're talking on. It's very interesting and all like that. And then and you gave out a number when I hang up. Can you give that number again and where we can get them? Are those books that you got to sell or anything?
Absolutely.
I'm going to hang up and listen so you can give the number and information out again.
And we thank you for calling in, and definitely make sure that you continue to tune in. Because
Okay.
we're on every Tuesday from 2:30 to 3 o'clock.
Thank you so much, sir.
then. I'm going to hang up so she can get that information. See if
Thank
the
you.
books, if she got there, if those books are for sale or anything. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our website is www.leapforjoy, that's LEEP, the number 4, JOY.com. So that's leapforjoy.com, LEEP, the number 4, JOY.com. And yes, you can reach us at 248-613-5628 if you have questions or if you'd like to get the books in bulk. We do offer bulk discounts as well, and discounts on shipping. If you have any questions, you also can email us at patricealee@gmail.com, and I'll spell that for you. P as in Peter, A, T as in Tom, RICE, capital A, LEE @gmail.com.
Definitely want to thank that caller for calling in, too.
I also want to address one of his concerns. He said that bullying was not such a problem when he was in school, and he's only 68 years old. The difference today, sir, in the way bullying is done is simply that we have so much more at our disposal. Children today have cell phones, they have access to the internet. Cyberbullying is a major, major deal with our children now. And it's almost uncontrollable because once things get on in cyberspace, you can't withdraw it. It's out there forever. And so when children are intimidated or bullied on the internet, on the web, even through their phones, through text messages, there's not a lot that they can do other than keep looking at it or know that everyone else that knows them has that information. And it's never a good thing to be constantly reminded of your being bullied. And so today, youth are taking their lives because they can't deal with the repercussions and the continued reminders and everyone knowing all these negative things that are being said about them.
Yeah, because it's sad because it seems like the more and more you tune in to the news, you're seeing about something that's happened to someone.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's a result of being bullied, in
Yes.
school or the cyberbullying. So that is something that I think a lot more people need to be concerned about.
Absolutely. And parents. This is where our parents can come in. And this is why we talk to parents, we do workshops with parents, and we ask parents to think twice about putting a cell phone in the hand of a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, even buying a cell phone for a 6 or 7-year-old to have at their disposal at all times. One, it's an interruption in the classroom, in the schools. And two, they had phones in the offices when we went to school, and they could reach our parents from the office when they needed to, and we never had a problem. And so I think if we rethink some of these things that we're doing, that we're handing our children at very early ages, we can curtail this problem of bullying and cyberbullying.
Well, I think in our last few minutes that we have on the air, Patrice, can you give your contact information one more time to our listening audience?
Absolutely. Our email address is patricealee@gmail.com, and that's Patrice, Patrice, capital A, capital L, EE @gmail.com. And we are www.leapforjoy.com. That's my last name, Lee, Lee, the number 4, joy.com.
Now, what type of venues? I know you've gone to schools because I know you and I did one of the high schools, a few years ago. But what other venues do you go and speak at?
We do anti-bully assemblies, rallies at churches, at organizations, youth organizations, and schools, as you mentioned. And wherever we're needed, if we're asked to come to a Girl Scout group or to Full and Fabulous, which is one of Sharon's groups. I've spoken to Sharon's young ladies with Full and Fabulous on several occasions, or wherever we're needed, we'll go. If it's just 2 children and they're in a neighborhood and we can reach them, we'll do that as well. But we really like to involve the parents when we're talking to the children. It's very important to talk with the parents as well because we really need their input and we need their support to help their children.
I think that's great, and you're to be commended because I know that is something that there are so many people that do have concerns about their child, or even the adults that have concern about one another. So you're to be commended. I appreciate you coming on the air. I do want to thank
you.
Sharon Dumas for allowing me to guest host the show today, and I pray that you come back again because I know that there's a lot more people that need to ask a lot more questions.
Thank you. And I will say our books are saving lives. I have parents that are coming back to me now and saying, your book saved my daughter's life.
That's great.
So thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, I think that, I just want to thank the caller, and in the future, if you see or you hear something that's going on, definitely let us know, because just like one of the things that we didn't get a chance to address today that was in the news was about a situation where I believe some people were injured in Kentucky,
Yes. There was a shooting this morning at 8 o'clock in the morning in Kentucky at one of the schools there, and I know several people were injured. I believe one may have been killed,
Okay.
and we'll be hearing more about that. There was also a shooting at a school last week. So we're hearing about some of them, but just remember, we're losing 10 to 12 children a day.
And that crosses
Suicide.
all different age groups. So definitely be on the alert and watch. Talk to your children. Talk to your coworkers as well.
Yes.
But thank you for tuning in today. You've been watching Expose Under the Sun, brought to you by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I am your guest host. Thank you to Sharon Dumas for allowing me, Darwin Griffin, to be the host on the show today. And again, I thank you, Patrice Lee, for being the guest on the show.
So
And
welcome.
if you would like to be a guest on the show or to advertise in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper that can be picked up now in Kroger's, call Valerie Lockhart at 313-457-5944. And we look forward to seeing you and joining us next week. Thank you again and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.